to part 3 of episode 29 of Uncommon Conversations. We're about to wrap it up. This will be a nice short little thing. My guest was just talking about a very complex topic. I'll try to articulate when he gets back on here what I think he was trying to say after he finishes what he was saying. We're back. So go ahead and wrap up your point.
Okay,
You're talking about
I guess I'm
choosing
trying
one
to
or the other.
wrap all of it up. So if we have these very finely tuned traditional value systems that have evolved for X amount of years and taken the form of language or whatever, and you have this resurge or not, this growing sense of okay, those aren't working because nature is actually even more finely tuned and complicated than we ever could have imagined. And the best way to figure out how finely tuned it is to have more people participating in this economy and more people trying to figure out what's going on. Well, we need to marry those two things together. And I think that social media and not social media. Social media is the opposite of that. Social media is trying to destroy all the traditional stuff. I mean, but people can use that however they want. But I think that the idea of technology that's can be so personalized to you that you can use it to figure out the fine tuning of your day-to-day environment and live in a very hyper specific way, very niche, radically niche way. We could go from having these tribalistic identities to what we're now doing is this weird dance between tribalistic and global. And then we could just say, okay, actually, let's just do 100% individualized or almost all the way individualized tradition. And I think that's the future. And I think that's very exciting.
I agree. So I'm going to touch on a few things and sort of just try to slowly illustrate and highlight what I think you were trying to say, or what I think you said. So first off, you sort of pointed out, and it's true, that the tradition, the traditional part of society, is the repository or whatever of wisdom. That's where all the people that have been listening to their elders for thousands of years all adds up to what your grandpa is telling you. And then there's people that are personality-wise more oriented towards personal duty and responsibility and how they can utilize the traditional system to be effective in society. That's their strategy. But biologically, they're more comfortable in that mode. Not a lot of new stuff, not a lot of different stuff, not a lot of cutting edge, breaking barrier stuff. And then there's the people that are more oriented, progressive people, are more oriented towards breaking the barriers and being on the cutting edge and disregarding the tradition. And the truth is society has to evolve and sustain itself, so you have to have the right combination of change and stability and traditional wisdom. And then you were sort of talking about language as a functional sociological strategy or approach, or technology, a functional sociological technology that allows us to interact with people and stuff like that. My worldview, or the way I said it, sort of overlaps, or it does overlap and encompass what you're saying, in that as me, you and all the other people in the world are my material environment. And our interactions and everything like that are all a part of the physical world that ideas are trying to represent in our minds, and language is our way of translating ideas between us. And then beyond that, you were sort of talking about the tree example. It's not an activity or a thing. It is an activity and a thing, but I think the more appropriate word for the sake of the neurology of human beings is a goal. The goal is to climb the tree. The first person develops a certain set of best practices, traditional wisdom for how to climb the tree. And then you have a whole nother tribe that's come up with another set of best practices on how to climb the tree. The goal is still climbing the tree, but now you have two different sets of sort of approaches, And then if you accumulate enough sets, and then you extract out of those sets the best and most consistent principles out of all of them, that is approximating the ultimate truth. And that, and so, let me see here. I had a few different little idea charts I just drew here. Um, and so, with goals that relate to the internal life of us as human beings and our social interaction, we're social creatures by nature. If you're going to climb, like if me and you as a friend group are oriented around you climbing the thing, and so I say something and use the tool to initiate the response in you to facilitate the broader goal of you climbing the thing, climbing the rock or the tree or whatever, then it's using a tool in the service of a broader goal, and you still have that goal and that materialist sort of framework, like the rock he's climbing or whatever is an environmental thing external to you. He's an environmental thing external to you, but you can recognize the subjective being within him. And so there is this like social aspect, like where it's how we interact with each other and our environment. And then it also just broadens out into like the environment itself. Let me see here. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about so this actually speaks to the truth of free will. It's interesting. Very smart people get together all the time and will debate free will without defining without defining what they think free will actually is. So they end up arguing over the definition instead of just arguing over the truth. So my definition of free will is that within the ultimate and very, very open, damn near unlimited range of things human beings can do, we have the ability to track what we are doing, compare it to that higher order goal we can recognize, and chart the course between it, and then try to traverse the course between it. And so, can you decide on a whim to now become a butterfly and fly into space while doing LSD and listening to Jimi Hendrix? No. You can't just say the universe now is insane and nothing makes sense and the entire order has now been destroyed. But within the being that you are and the capacities and the ultimate potential that humans have, which is damn near unlimited, especially when you think about what we can make outside of ourselves, like planes and stuff that can fly even if we can't fly, and that can fly us around even though we can't fly. We have the ability to choose out of all of that range of possibility what we're aiming for, and then we have different capacities to change our behavior to get closer to that goal, and generation over generation we get closer to that goal. And so bringing it to the full globalization question, some traditional wisdom systems in the world are going to be shit, and some of them are going to be amazing, and you got to figure out which are which. And then of all the ones that you think are good, and you have to define what you think good is as best as you can, of all of those, what are the central principles that you can extract out of those traditional systems of wisdom? And those are ultimate truths, divine truths about human beings. We'll leave it for another day, but I had a full arc of true believer. My grandpa was a pastor in the Southern Baptist Convention. He was a president of the Southern Baptist Convention for a couple of years, big in the church. And then when I was 18, I lost my faith. And then by about 24, I regained the intellectual composition to be able to have a belief in God. And not only to have a belief in God, but like the God's fingerprint and will on the universe is discernible, understandable, recognizable as his or its will to me. And you cannot directly see the being, but you can directly recognize the will. And because of, and what I mean by this is gravity, depending on the level of relative material within the, space-time fluid or whatever we're all existing in. gravity and material comes to each other at some sort of a rate, depending on the amount of material and everything like that. That law, the fact that the universe works that way, why it works that way, was determined before the universe started or appeared or whatever happened. That structure has been there from the beginning, and science is the attempt to understand the material structure, predictable, concrete structure of the universe. But we as human beings are a mixture of emerging out of biology and then reaching up towards higher ideals. Like I said, the goals of society, higher ideals, the judgmental ideal of Jesus Christ and of God or whatever. Like not Jesus Christ necessarily, but the idea of the judgmental Father. We're emerging up out of Mother Nature and reaching up towards, Father God, reaching out of our sinful nature and up towards our ideal ways of living as human beings. And so that not only the truth of what it means to ultimately live as the ideal human being, that idea, like whatever that ultimate truth is, has been that ultimate truth since the structure of the universe was initiated. Because all the potential for everything that's happened since the beginning of the universe was there with the beginning of the universe. Like when you create a software code, in some sense, all the possibilities of the software code are built into the rules of the software code. And so the ultimate divine truth of how to live best as a human being is a thing we have to discover, and these traditional wisdom centers are attempts at discovering that truth. It's like a car manual versus a car. The car manual can tell you how to maintain the car, can tell you the parts of the car, can describe to you the various functions of the car, but you can't drive anywhere with the car manual. Like the car is this thing that it's referring to indirectly. These sacred texts are speaking to the truth of God and speaking to the truth of the universe in the best way they can. And whatever ultimately true and consistent amongst all of it and everything going forward is the truth of God and the truth of what we need to do as human beings here on this planet. And one of those things is to actualize our creative and productive potential, to be the creators that we were created to be. If man is made in the image of God and God is the creator, then the divine, godly thing to do within us is to create.
Mm-hmm. I guess the question is how to do that.
You get to figure it out.
Pass it off.
It's the beautiful thing is it's a process. Here's the thing. If you were given when the day you were born, this is how you live your life, and you just had it, and you just executed the same exact thing, and there was no improvement, there was no story arc, there was no change, it would like literally, to me, it would be hell. I had a dream when I was a kid that I was in heaven, and it was like, the clouds, pure white mistiness, nothingness, formlessness, and there was just the God and the whatever out here, and it wasn't even anything I could see. I was like amongst a bunch of beings that I couldn't see, but I knew were there, all looking up towards this thing, and it was not changing, uniform, formless nothingness in a certain sense, like everythingness and nothingness at the same time. And that was like hell to me in that dream. It scared me. I was like, I wouldn't want to just be there forever and nothing changes. Like our life here is so much more interesting and so much more like that there is something to it. We don't know what the something is beyond this. So like that I don't know, I'm sort of getting really, really deep with that, but I think that the reason why we exist as something individual and with form instead of the grand nothing formlessness is because we're supposed to be this way. And so it's you as an individual form being you and discovering your talents, your purpose, your character, your faults, and improving in the whole journey and beauty of life. That is the purpose of it all, I think.
I just don't know if everyone needs to live that way. That's my
when you say create, right? You don't have to create a painting that 1 million people are going to buy. You can create another human being. You can create a new family. You can create a new business. You can create a new. You can draw art in your own home for your own purpose, and you can create that. You don't even have to be creative if you don't feel like being creative. You could just be productive. You don't even have to be productive if you can find meaning absent from that. I wanted to talk about uh um
I like your hair,
so, oh, thank you, thank
the
you,
curly
thank you.
hair. It's nice.
Yeah, yeah, I've been blessed with curly, and this is
Mine
like,
is curlier. Usually I get a haircut.
that's cool. So I appreciate that. Thank you. We know communists, like actual communists that live on communes, exist, and that is an example of someone not. Oh, I know what I was trying to write now. You talked about, I think it was the democratic technological oligarchy. I don't know. You said something to that effect, but the modern
Democratic
democratic
technological.
technocratic. What was it?
The, like democratic is in democracy. Technocratic is it globalism or something to that effect.
People should, and also we talked about materialism and consumerism a little, or consumerism specifically before. Um, we know people that live on communes and just take what they have to have and share everything and love to work for caring for other people. And some people that just like to take advantage of that situation and are lazy or whatever. I don't know. We know that that exists. We know that people can move away from this materialist thing. We know people, like, I love to go fishing when I've gone fishing in the handful of times in my life. There's nothing material, or consumerist about that. So I think, the people that are oriented towards that already exist, and we should, as a society, move more in that direction. Because, like, um, having a really nice phone doesn't, like, just for its own sake, um, doesn't mean anything. And there's nothing, which means it's also, that means there's nothing wrong with it. It's just you want to have this interesting, next level thing. But so I'll use YouTube as the example, and then we'll wrap it up soon. When I was 15, I was really, really into YouTube. I got like obsessed with it. And at that time, YouTube was known for cat videos playing piano. Like, that was the joke. That was sort of the thing. The zeitgeist in the early part of the YouTube was, that's what people were doing. Um, and I was watching strength and conditioning, physical fitness, and philosophy videos at 15 on YouTube. So, like, the tool is what you use it for. It's neither good nor bad. Social media is not, you talk about social media. I think Facebook specifically is trying to disrupt traditional systems and create chaos. So I think when you say, like, social media creates this, like, disruption of tradition inherently, I think with Facebook that's true, funny enough. And, like, all the old people are on Facebook, which is kind of funny.
Mm-hmm.
uh, but ultimately, I think it's just people, like, people that want more convenient social interaction, and then what you choose that social interaction to be for will have more and more of an impact. So, like, I could be watching videos on how to make sure that I pay as little in taxes as possible, and figure out how to make as much money as I possibly can for myself, and, like, various selfish things. And I've looked into some of that stuff because I care about, like, how to make money. You got to make money. And I think that there's respectable aspects to people that are the hyper capitalists, like the people that are working 80, 90, 100, 110, 120 hours a week, like, just work all day and sleep and work all day and sleep over and over and over again. There's value there. So I studied some of those people for that purpose, and I gain understanding about the world just by listening to people that know stuff about the world. But I'm trying, like, I'm choosing to be oriented around what I could be doing with my time that is best for myself, for my family, and for everyone ultimately. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing now. It's I don't know. Anyway, so these tools are just what you make of them, in my opinion. Like, and humans have the potential for good and bad, and that's just kind of always the case. Our capacity has increased, so the amount of stuff has increased, so the amount of bad out there is increased, the amount of good out there is increased, and gaps between people that are obsessed with the bad and trying to focus on the good will only grow with time. But yeah. Anywho, I think this is a good time to call it if you're happy with that. Dude, this has been dope. I really enjoyed it. We'll definitely do it again.
It was fun.
Yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad you
Cool.
thought that, and I appreciate
It
the
was
hair
chill.
compliment. I really do.
Yeah, right. I see the gel in there, and I don't have enough now to put gel, but
It's conditioner. I just put conditioner in there.
oh wow.
It's healthier for the hair.
Okay, I try to do both, but maybe I should. No, I never mind. When I have a lot, I have to use the gel. There's no question about it. I was gonna say one last thing about the maybe the commune example. I mean, I guess I agree. Like, yeah, there's more good, there's more bad, or whatever. I definitely though think that most people like we probably should go back to the sustainable commune type lifestyle if that's possible over a period of years. I don't know how long it would take. I think that's much more preferable than what we have now. I feel like
I think people would
if
be a
we
lot
could,
happier.
people would be better off and we could survive for longer on the earth, like as a civilization or species. I do think though that like the point of capitalism and the point of like all this consumerism is ideally to facilitate some sort of like maybe not self-aware AI, but like some sort of machine that can sort objects the way that we do using language. I think that's the goal. So hopefully if we can achieve that, then we don't need all these phones. Because really phones, I think, you really think about them, they're so, why do I need, I mean, I would rather live in a community with people where I'm seeing them all the time than having to get on this brick that hurts my wrist if I use it too long and look at images of people. I mean, it's just so ridiculous. Like, like, but I do think that there is a point to it at least that hopefully will be achieved from science.
We
So,
need to move. We need to move away from like I'm using this for something good. Not a lot of people are necessarily gonna be able to like if social media is dysfunctional in your life, you need to be honest about whether or not that's the case, and you should pull back. And in my opinion, most people should pull back from social media a lot. I think we're getting addicted to it. Like, and
mm,
many Americans are already beyond addicted to it. And I struggle with addiction to it too. I have a hard time getting away from the news cycle, getting away from being plugged in, getting away from checking my, friends and social media stuff. Like it's not like
it creates an alienation.
I'm finger wagging from the outside. I'm talking about me
Hmm.
as well as anybody else. Because I'm not like just using social media for noble things. I'm using them for some noble things and a bunch of shit I'm just doing.
But I mean, a lot of the stuff you would replace it with, like socializing, is just not as like available as it
It's
would
harder.
be if no one
A better
had
life is
social
usually harder.
media.
A better life is usually slightly requires more effort, but it's worth
And
it.
to even refer to the not climate change in particular, but the extinction event that we're causing now, like effectively like destroying nature, like to an extremely large degree. Like I think that the more alienated we get, the more like ironically, it's probably going to drive our need to like recreate nature. And I think that so it's kind of sort of a Nick Land accelerationism, but like with a purpose, because I think the purpose is going to be eventually that we get so fed up, we're like, okay, how do we go back? And then we realize that you can't go back because, like you're saying, if we just stop consuming, I mean, it wouldn't actually change it. We have to create more technology to offset the climate problem to solve it. So we in a way, we're trapped now. And like, I think the more people realize we're trapped, the more they'll want to get untrapped and never
I
be
think
trapped again.
so here's how I would say it. We were born to be shepherds of nature and we forgot our job for quite a while and we're having to get back on the horse.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, man. Well, dude, this has been dope. I really enjoyed this conversation. I hope I didn't like bombard you too much and didn't
No,
like
I
make you feel like you
expected
didn't get to talk.
I expected for you to talk more, but I think that I got a lot out of it. It gave me more structure to my responses, so I thought that was good.
Good. I'm glad. I'm happy. You have a good one, brother.
Yeah,
We'll
you
do this
too.
again sometime.
Have a good one. Peace.
Peace.